Hello, everyone, and welcome to a kind of a special edition of the SatAM review series. Now, for the past couple of reviews, I've been doing mostly episodes out of season one, and I promised I was going to do something special for this one, and I am. What I'm going to review and talk about is is only the well, I'm sorry here, only the only two-part episode ever aired on SatAM. And that episode is none other, that two-parter is none other than Blast to the Past. Now, a lot of people, when they watch this episode, they probably think to themselves, well, Blast to the Past, the way it's presented, should have been the first episode aired on the second season. A lot of people believe that. Why people believe that? I don't know. But anyway, let's get into it, shall we? Blast to the Past basically centers around Sonic and Sally going to the past to try to fix things before they go wrong. In other words, what they're trying to do is they're trying to prevent Robotnik from taking over the planet. In other words, prevent history from happening. Now, at first, the reason this occurs is because Sonic, after a mission is successful but failing, in which they lose two primary freedom fighters, or just, I guess you could see, extra freedom fighters. The reason for this happening is because Sonic tells Sally during the little meeting that they have, and Dulcie's in there as well, that they should have taken Robotnik down before he took over. Now Sally has to tell Sonic, well, Sonic, we were 5 years old at the time. There was nothing really we could do. We were probably the most vulnerable out of anybody. Now Dulcie hears it. Now Dulcie, upon hearing it, says, well, you could still do that. You could actually still do it, but you'd have to go back in time by using the legendary time stones. Now Sally, of course, always sticks to reality and to the true facts, has to tell Dulcie that the time stones are a myth. They're not real. They're legend. And the same goes with the floating island that Dulcie talks about. The same thing. Now Dulcie finally, in a way, along with Sonic, convinces Sally, look, it's real. The time stones are real. You got to trust me on it. Now, Sal, I guess, probably wanting to get some air, probably clear her head after everything has happened, decides to go along with them, only to be proven wrong about the myth, about the island and the time stones, because in typical Dulcie fashion, she ends up running into something or flying into something and crashing right onto the island. Now, there's a temple there, and Sonic and Sally enter this temple after being chased by these guard dogs or something. They go into this temple and encounter a guy called the Keeper of the Time Stones. Now it's no echidna, believe it or not. It's not Knuckles or anything. It's an owl. It's an owl head, whatever. And he basically gives them a riddle, and the riddle is about time. And the riddle basically it's about time. It's like it's a often watched, never seen. In in short, it brings fear. In long, it brings boredom. In short, it brings fear. I'm trying to remember it. Oh yeah, and the first. Well, actually, the way it goes is the way that riddle that he gives Sonic and Sally is: I run and run, but cannot flee. I often watch, but cannot see. In long, I bring boredom, and in short, I bring fear. And the answer, well, Sally, being who she is, gets it right off the bat. Says it's time, because when you think about it, time is in all those categories. Time runs and runs, but it never flees. Time is watched, but never seen. And in a long term, time sometimes brings boredom, In short, it will bring fear. You kind of get the idea, so I'm sorry if I kind of rambled and stalled a little bit there. Anyway, after solving the riddle, they get the time stones, and Sally basically tells Sonic, concentrate on Palace Fountain in the year 3224. Now Sonic agrees to do that, and it looks like everything's going fine. They're both saying it. They're both saying where they want to go, what year. But in typical Sonic fashion, he messes up, and instead of saying 3224 at the end, he says 32 chili dog. Now because of that, things start to kind of unravel. Now at first it looks like everything's okay, everything's fine. But later on, after they encounter Uncle Chuck and encounter their younger selves, and kind of explain to Uncle Chuck who they are and what's going on, that they find out that the day they have arrived on is the exact day of the coup-op. In other words, they have arrived on the day that Robotnik is going to take over. So what happens is that Uncle Chuck just agrees to go take him to Sally's father, and to kind of hopefully convince the king that what's about to happen, to kind of get him to prevent what's going to happen. Now, while they do this, we get introduced not only to the other younger versions of the Freedom Fighters, but we get introduced to the nanny, Rosie. Now, why is she an important role in this? Well, you'll find out. Now, Rosie is basically the carekeeper of these, the nanny and the carekeeper of these of the Freedom Fighters as kids. Now, basically what happens is Uncle Chuck takes him to go see the king. The king's a little skeptical at first, believing that this person that's won the war for them, which is Robotnik, he's known as Julian in the past, could never betray them or anything, never want to usurp the kingdom or corrupt it or anything like that. Like I said, very skeptical of it until Sally approaches him, and basically as he looks into Sally's eyes after Uncle Chuck tells the king that she's from the future, and then sees the royal signet on his finger, is he convinced that possibly what Uncle Chuck is saying is the truth. And then Sally basically has to tell him the same thing, but unfortunately she doesn't get the chance to really tell him what's going on, because here comes Robotnik with all the SWAT bots and all the stealth bots, all reprogrammed to obey only him, and thus the coup-op has begun. Now, in the second part of this of Blast to the Past, we're left off as the coup-op begins, Robotnik rechristening the city Robotropolis, or Robotropolis, rechristening himself Robotnik, and basically Sonic, at Uncle Chuck's urging, taking himself and Sally out of there to try to go get the kids and get them to Knothole. But unfortunately, what happens while they're doing this is that even as kids, Sonic is curious about a few things. So what he does is he leads him and his friends to go find out what's going on their own as kids, and they end up getting captured. Now, excuse the noise in the background, that's a truck. Now what happened is, as soon as they arrive back there, Sonic and Sally in the second part, to try to find the kids and take them to Knothole, they see that they're not there and probably think Rosie took them there. Already took them there, and then all of a sudden they themselves are captured, Sonic and Sally. And as they're captured, they'll be walked down the prison, into the cell. Do they notice that the kids are also locked up? So after they're locked up, Sally basically has to tell Sonic they got to get the kids out of there, or because if they don't, and the kids are roboticized, they right now will cease to exist. In other words, as we have seen in typical time travel episodes, if a younger person is roboticized or killed or put in danger, the current version of that person starts to fade away. That's what Sally's telling Sonic. If we don't get the kids out of here, we will fade away. Everyone else in the present will fade away. So basically what happens is they escape from the cell, try to find the kids, only to find out the kids have been taken to the roboticizer. They're able to stall the roboticization for about 2 hours, thanks to Nicole. While they're doing this as well, they try to locate where the kids are in the prison, but they also get the original roboticizer plans, which is a plus, because it helps them with the de-roboticizer, I guess. Now, unfortunately, what happens is, unfortunately, they got to take care of something else, because they see the destroyer, which is sort of like a ship version of the roboticizer or something, I don't know. heading towards the Great Forest and towards Knothole. So basically, that takes up their time, and they gotta go destroy that thing first before they can also get the kids out. So it's gonna be a tight situation for them. And also, there's a little bit of humor along the way, as Sonic's the one that causes Snively's hair to go poof, off of his head. And they also encounter Dulcie's mom, Sabina, who later on helps them out. And how does Sabina help them out? Well, as they're on the destroyer, trying to get a way in, and here comes Sabina helping them out, destroying all the stealth bots and everything, and even the destroyer, and helps them back to the ground. Just in time for them to rush back to Robotropolis to prevent the kids from being roboticized. Now what happens next? Well, I'll let you know in part 2.